Oh, hi there. How are you? I didn't hear you come in. Well, welcome. Welcome for another lesson. Today, we're going to have a lesson on bar chords. Now, what's a bar chord, you ask? I'm glad you asked. I'm here to show you. Simply put, bar chords are chords that don't use any open strings. And because they don't use any open strings, we're free, as guitar players, to move them all up and down the fretboard, which gives us a lot of freedom and a lot more room to work. Generally speaking, when we all start learning, we learn what are called first position open string chords, usually down here in the first 3 frets. I'm talking about chords like E minor, and G, and C, and D. And all of these chords use, at least in part, open strings. So you can't move them. They would sound awful if you did. For instance, here's a G chord. Sounds good. If I move it up 1 fret, not so good, right? But when we're just working down here, we're not using the rest of our fretboard. What good is that to us, right? Now also, there are going to be times when you want to learn a certain song and it's going to require a chord that cannot be played the way you're used to with the open strings, and then you're going to get stuck. Now, the first chord that a lot of us have trouble with is the F chord when we first start learning, because we have to do what's called a partial bar. We hold down strings 1 and 2 at the first fret with our first fingers, and we use our second finger to grab the A note on fret 2 of string 3, and our third finger to grab the F note on fret 3 of string 4. And we think, my God, that's hard. But after a while, you keep trying it, you'll get it. Probably the next thing you're going to run across is a song that has a B minor chord in it. That's this guy. That's a bar chord. There are no open strings in here. And because there are no open strings, I can make this B minor into a C minor, or a D minor, or an E minor, or an E flat minor, or a C sharp minor. It's great. You can play in any key once you get bar chords down. So let's take a look at what how bar chords work. They're going to be based. I'm going to show you bar chords based off 4 main shapes. The shapes are shapes you're already going to be familiar with because these are chords you learned early on. But we're going to take a look at new ways to play them. So let's start with the E major shape, which is, of course, your first finger on fret 1 of string 3, your second finger on fret 2 of string 5, and your third finger on fret 2 of string 4. And you usually play all 6 strings. The other ones, strings 6, 2, and 1 are open. Now when we play the E major chord, the root of the chord is here on our 6th string, our low E string. So here's what you're going to do. You are going to play the same chord, but instead of using fingers 1, 2, and 3, you're going to use fingers 2, 3, and 4. So now your first finger is freed up to do other things. So the fingering I'm using now is finger 2 on fret 1 of string 3, finger 3 on fret 2 of string 5, and pinky on fret 2 of string 4. So same chord, same shape, just different fingers. Now, if I take that shape and move it up 1 fret, and I use my first finger to bar the 6 strings underneath my other fingers at fret 1, now I have this chord. It's an F chord. Because now I've changed the root. I'm holding down the note on fret 1 of the 6th string instead of playing it open. That's an F note. So if I move that up 2 more frets to the 3rd fret, now it's a G note here. So now it's a G major chord. If I move it up 2 more frets to fret 5, now it's an A note here. Now it's an A major chord. You can just keep going. B, C, D. But you can also hit those awkward in-between ones for which there is no chord shape that uses open strings, like F sharp at fret 2, or G sharp at fret 4, or A sharp at fret 6. Can't play those with open strings. It just simply will not work. So until you've mastered bar chords, you're denying yourself a lot of chords and a lot of songs that use those chords. So at one point or another, you're going to have to get used to playing them. Now, let's talk about how I'm using my first finger to bar. Don't try laying your first finger flat across the strings. It won't work. First of all, I doubt you'd even be able to do that if you tried. But if you did, it wouldn't work very well and it would be very, very uncomfortable. What you want to do is try to use the outside edge of your finger. So the edge that's closest to your thumb, right? Just like that. You want to kind of roll your finger over. I'm not sure if you can see this or not. So roll your finger over so it's like that. And you'll notice my finger's also a little curved. I kind of come in at the top of the fret and curve downward like that. I'm not sure how well you can see my fingers on this. That's why I'm talking through all of this. Because if you try to do it straight, it's not going to work. And like I said, it's going to be very uncomfortable. But I think if you find that if you use the outside edge of your finger and you curve it and kind of shape it like that, it'll be pretty comfortable once you get used to it. And it sounds a lot better. Now, that's a major chord shape based on the E major chord form. Now, generally speaking, we have E major and we have E minor, which, as you know, because you've learned this already, all you have to do is remove that first finger. In fact, this is probably the first chord I ever taught you, E minor, right? So finger on, E major. Finger off, E minor. Same thing works for bar chords. Here we are barring at fret 1 for an F major chord. If I take my second finger off, now I have an E minor chord shape, so it's F minor. And so on and so forth. At the 3rd fret, G major. Second finger off, G minor. A major, A minor. You get the idea. Now, those are shapes that use the 6th string for where the root of the chord is. But there are 2 other shapes we can use, and those are shapes that have the root of on the 5th string, the A string. I'm talking about shapes that use an A minor chord shape and an A major chord shape. We're going to look at the minor one first. So normally, how we would play an A minor chord is like this, with our first finger on fret 1 of string 2, our 3rd finger on fret 2 of string 4, and our 3rd finger on fret 2 of string 3, and we would have the 5th and the 1st strings open. We don't play string 6 because it's not part of this chord form. So just like we did with the E major chord, we're going to substitute our 2nd, 3rd, and 4th fingers to free up our 1st finger. So now we have finger 2 on fret 1 of string 2, finger 3 on fret 2 of string 4, and pinky on fret 2 of string 3. Same shape, same notes, just different fingers. Now, if I move all that up 2 frets, so that my 2nd finger is now on fret 3 and my 3rd and 4th fingers are now on fret 4, and I bar using my 1st finger, the way we just talked about, using a slight curve and the outside edge of your finger, if I bar at fret 2, now I've changed the root note. Now it's a B note, so now this is no longer an A minor chord, it's B minor. So basically, when we use our 1st finger to bar like this, our 1st finger is replacing the nut, right? It becomes the new nut. So there you go, there's a B minor chord. If I move it up to the 3rd fret, it's a C minor chord. If I move it up to the 5th fret, it's a D minor chord. There you go. 7th fret, E minor. E minor an octave above this E minor. See? See, so you can get different voicings. It's very cool. Plus you can get all those awkward in-between ones like C sharp minor, like that, or you know, E flat minor, F sharp minor. So now you have two ways to play F sharp minor. You can play it down here with your root on string 6th, 2nd fret using an E minor shape, or you can play it up here with the A minor shape with the root on where are we? Fret 9, like that. So that's another reason to use these. You can, you know, have different voicings for the same chord. That leaves us one more shape. Now this one I'm not going to con you on. This is the difficult one. It's the one based on A major. You might be wondering why that's difficult. Well, you're about to find out. So here's an A major chord. Most of us learn how to play it with our first finger on fret 2 of string 4, our second finger on fret 2 of string 3, and our third finger on fret 2 of string 2, with the A and the E strings open. Now, imagine if you used your third finger to do that. See, even I have a little trouble getting that last note out. There it is. So what I'm doing is I'm doing this with my third finger, kind of bending it like that, so that it catches. I'm barring strings 2, 3, and 4, but not string 1. String 1 is still open. So if I move that up to fret 4 and I use my finger, my first finger, to bar the other strings on fret 2, now the new root is on B, the B note on fret 2 is string 5. Now I have a B major chord. Or if I move it up to fret 4, now I have a C sharp major chord. If I move it up to fret 6, I've got a D sharp, or if you prefer, E flat major chord. Now, that's the first one I really thought I'd never be able to play. When I first started learning these bar chords, I mean, I found them, you know, everyone does find these difficult at first, but that one was the one that's like, I'm never going to be able to play that in a million years. But you know what? I did, and so will you. It requires a bit more strength to hold down these bars, and it's a new shape that your hands aren't used to. But if you stop to think about it, when you first started playing guitar, all the chords were hard, right? Because they were all shapes that your fingers weren't used to. You had to do things that required stretching your fingers and putting them into odd shapes that they weren't used to. And you got that. You can play them well enough now, right? So if you try these bar chords at first, oops, don't do that. If you try these bar chords at first and they seem strange and awkward and they feel difficult, just remember, so did all the other chords when you first started playing guitar, but you didn't let that stop you from learning them, did you? And now you can play them really well. Now you can play a whole bunch of songs with them. And if you learn these, you'll be able to play a lot more songs. And there are songs where you just have to know these chords. You won't be able to play them. You know, so you're going to run into them. I remember I remember getting a Rolling Stones songbook when I was probably about 15, 16 years old. And I love the Rolling Stones. They're one of my favorite bands ever, and I was so excited I got this book. I was like, I can't wait to learn these songs. Oh God, every song I picked up had a bar chord in it, usually this one, usually the B minor chord. And I was so disappointed. I was like, I'll never be able to play these songs. I was going to be kind of mad, you know. I was like, Rolling Stones and bar chords. But, you know, I wanted to learn them, so I did. And it's like everything else. It takes practice, it takes repetition, and it takes time. So if you try these, and you know you have a bit of difficulty with them at first, don't feel bad. We all do. I do. Anyone who tries these for the first time does, but we all get them eventually because, you know, we love to play our guitars, so we keep trying, and we get them. And then we're glad we did because, you know, it opens up a whole world of songs that you can't play unless you know how to play these kinds of chords. And especially this one. That one's hard. I mean, even though I thought I would never be able to play that, but you know, I persevered, I kept on it, and I did, and so will you. And the other thing is, I don't expect you to get these in a week, or 2 weeks, or even in a month. This is something that takes time, but I figure get you started now. Sooner we get you started, sooner you're going to arrive, right? And you know, like I said, these are so worth it. These are so worth knowing. There's just so many songs that you have to know these kinds of chords to play, you know? That's a Bob Dylan song, one of his earliest hits. It uses nothing but bar chords. A major at the 5th fret, C sharp minor at the 4th fret, G major at the 3rd fret, and B minor at the 2nd fret. Unless you know these chords, you can't play that song, or a lot of other ones. Hotel California by the Eagles. Those first two, the B minor and the F sharp major. Unless you learn bar chords, you'll never play that song. And there are a lot of songs like that. You really do just have to, you know, knuckle down and learn the bar chords at some point. So I figured, hey, let's get you started now. Sooner you start, sooner you'll get there. And then you're just going to have a whole wealth of songs open to you that you didn't have before, and you're gonna be happy with that. So enough about that. Enough for me. You know what time it is now. That's right. It's time for you to go to the practice room and get practicing, because these bar chords aren't going to learn themselves now. Can you play them yet? No. So you got work to do. So go on. Turn off the video. Quit looking at me. Get to the practice room and knuckle down and put some work in. Because I'm going to be watching and I'm going to know. You better be practicing. All right, go have fun with the bar chords and we'll see you next time.